Welcome to the Private Practice Pro podcast, a podcast dedicated to helping therapists cultivate success. Here's your host, Kelley Stevens.
This podcast is sponsored by Simple Practice. I've been using Simple Practice since 2016, which has helped me run a smooth and profitable private practice over the years. It has simplified everything from scheduling to billing, giving me a better balance between the work I'm so passionate about and the family time I'm not willing to miss out on. Check out the episode notes to get a free 2-month trial of Simple Practice, my preferred all-in-one HIPAA-compliant solution.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Private Practice Pro podcast. After some big technical difficulties, Erin and I are here. And Erin, I'm so excited to have you on the podcast. And I want you just to introduce yourself, tell us who you are, tell us where you're sitting, tell us all the details of you.
Okay, awesome. So happy to be here, Kelley, by the way. So I am Erin Spar, and I am a therapist in private practice, and I'm located outside of Raleigh, North Carolina. Kind of new to the South. Before that, I lived in Baltimore for several years, and I'm still licensed there. So I'm seeing clients in both places. And I am also mistake. I'm already making mistakes. So I specialize in working with moms through kind of the whole range of phases. I really like working with mothers from preconception, kind of the maternal ambivalence, even deciding whether to be a mom, all the way till like sort of launching kids at the end of their childhood. So really love working with moms. I'm also on Instagram. I am the feminist mom therapist. And on there, I really like to kind of both validate the experience of mothers and kind of all of the hard parts about being a mom. And what's, I think, unique about my page is that I really sort of use a feminist kind of social justice lens, where I really like to highlight and point out how our culture, our society, right, so the patriarchy really impacts the experience of mothers in particular, and highlighting kind of all the ways that our society is really kind of leading to a lot of mental health problems, feeling burnout, that actually really makes sense when you look at kind of the way we're mothering. So that's like an outlet for me, but also a way to connect with other mothers.
Oh my gosh. Well, I mean, and that's really how I found you, because I can so relate. You know, I think that you do a great job in all of your content of really pointing out the systemic issues that arise for moms and for your clients. Which can feel so destigmatizing as a mom, you know, and especially for our clients. There's so many times when I'm watching your content and I'm like, yes, that is the problem. Help me. Which I think is really cool because, you know, certainly we've had other people on this podcast that work with moms. We've also, you know, a lot of people who've been on this podcast have been moms. Like 93% of my audience is women, which is wild. And so I think it's like the reality of something we face not only as women and as moms, but also as therapists. You know, I think a lot of this kind of infiltrates the career of being a therapist.
Yeah, for sure. And I actually do see a lot of therapists, right? And therapists who are moms, right? And trying to balance all of that, for sure.
Right. That's super interesting. So how did you, when you first decided that you were going to kind of like put yourself out there as the feminist mom therapist, how did it feel for you? Did it make you nervous? Like, you know, because you're tackling a really big topic. So I'm just wondering for you on a personal level what that was like.
Oh my goodness. Like, it's definitely scary to put yourself out there. And yet I also feel like I do it because it's fun, or there is like an outlet or some kind of inner like need to get something out. So it's like, I think I've been kind of realizing I think I might have some like ADHD kind of things, like many of us. And I think I saw that you also maybe relate to that. And so I think in some ways it kind of is like a kind of a short way of like doing something that's creative, but also I'm passionate about.
Right.
So in that way, it's like really satisfying, but it's really scary to show up. And certainly as a therapist, right? Like in the beginning, it was like, am I allowed to do that? Am I allowed to sort of show up in this way, right? When we're really taught, you know, to sort of not disclose much about who we are.
Well, and especially because when you like picking words like feminist, mom, and therapist, all three of those are loaded with people putting their own messages and their own ideas of what that is. And so I was wondering that, like, when I was watching your content, because in school we're taught like blank slate, right?
Yeah.
Like, don't share any of your political beliefs. And you put it out there a lot of the time. So do you get any trolls or do you get any comments from people that are like, you shouldn't do this or something like that?
I think I've marketed myself in a way that like the folks who come to me really are like my audience. And I do notice like a lot of my clients are kind of progressive, liberal mothers. And so I think it helps them feel safe with me actually to kind of already have out there sort of a sense of my values and kind of perspectives. So I think that can be helpful. But yeah, I mean, the internet, it's trolls. And I tend to shut it down pretty quickly and not mess around too much.
Yeah.
But yeah, I will
do you block them or do you engage with them?
So I would get like really mad and at first like engage. Sometimes I just go right to blocking if it's like really mean. I mean, it's interesting. Sometimes people will say like, you must not be a good therapist. If you know, they really like try to hit you there. Like you must be a bad therapist for having this opinion or whatever. So I definitely think it's risky in that it doesn't, you know, it may mean that my audience isn't like as big as I'm saying. Like this is a specific sort of group that maybe I'm sort of speaking to. But I also think that that's kind of also the benefit of it is feeling like I am speaking to a particular niche, right? Which we know is also helpful.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really helpful. This like came up for me around student loan time. I posted a reel about student loan forgiveness and I didn't even really like share a ton of my personal thoughts on it, but I posted, you know, some content on it, and whoa, like people had some big feelings about student loans, you know? And like anytime we get into something that feels semi-political in like today's world, I feel like you do run the risk of making your audience smaller. However, exactly what you're saying, I think that's like actually a very, very good thing. You know, like we don't need hundreds and hundreds of clients. We need people that are good fit clients. And then we need to be a good fit for them. So I think you're right that, you know, it's like you want to make sure that you're attracting the people that would work well with you.
Yeah. And I wonder if I would have started my private practice like at a different time. I think, you know, I started it in 2020. You know, I left a group practice and went on my own because of the pandemic. It was earlier than I had thought I would do it.
Really? I didn't know that. Okay, wait. So go back to that time. So you were living in Baltimore at this point, and like early 2020. Like, give us the story.
Yeah. So I basically before that, I had most of my career was in like community mental health in a sort of teaching hospital in Baltimore, which everyone in Baltimore would know what it was. But basically, like doing kind of more medical model agency work, and you know, was a supervisor and got to start a clinic. They did lots of like little specialty clinics, and I founded this clinic called sort of a perinatal mental health clinic, and we focused on sort of pregnant postpartum folks. And so that's kind of where I sort of established that as a specialty. And then, you know, as we all do, I started to kind of burn out in community mental health and seeing some of the systemic problems really in looking at clients who were underserved, who were in poverty, who actually needed like real tangible things, I think, more than they needed therapy. But anyway, so then I joined a group practice and I was there for, I think, about 2 years before the pandemic. And And it was a beautiful office. It was a wonderful team. But then the pandemic happened. I'm sitting in my basement and I had, 2 kids at home. My husband's trying to like do his meetings from home with like a toddler next to him. And,
Oh my God.
we were just there. And I couldn't see as many clients as the group practice really wanted or needed.
Right.
And so I was like, well, I'm going to do this on my own and be able to make more money, income with less clients, right? That's part of the appeal. So I think at that time, there was such a political kind of upheaval that we were all really going through, and I think talking about politics and things like that. So I think that was maybe part of maybe even the mindset that I went in when I started to kind of market. And I didn't start off as the feminist mom there.
You did it. What did you start as?
Like Erin Spar therapy on Instagram,
And then when did you make the change?
Probably like 6 months into it, when I was like, what's different about me? What stands out? And kind of adding this and kind of owning that actually what I'm talking about is the specific lens. So I thought I would name it to make it more searchable, to make it really clear.
So when you did decide to niche down a little bit, did you notice a growth in your audience?
Yeah. I mean, I think in some ways, like if you stand out, if you do something that's like different, that maybe feels a little bit risky, that does tend to, I think, connect with people. Yeah. I mean, I have no idea how growth really works. I think that we can all have theories.
We
and
could
ideas.
all speculate about it. Yeah.
I had one viral video that I actually took down. It was I got 4 million views or something.
Wow.
And that gave me a lot of sort of fast growth.
Right.
And then it was actually of my son and me in Trader Joe's, and I was doing this sort of move that I was trying to show where I helped him get some tension out, and I'm holding my hands up. You can't see it if you're listening. Right. To let him kind of get some tension out. And for some reason, I don't know if it was the audio I used or the kind of clip, it's so magical. It got a lot of views. And so, but I kind of have gone backwards a bit in wanting to put my kids on Instagram. That's a whole topic that people are really talking about now. And so I just decided to kind of shut that down.
It's interesting. Yeah, let's talk about I'm right in the thick of that to question. I actually just posted about this today. So we only post, I mean, my son is on my webpage or some of my materials. But this is a hard one. I don't necessarily, what do you do now?
Before I would sort of here and there, maybe kind of, it's just a picture, but I just feel having their face on line. I feel I don't know what that means for their footprint in the future. They can't really consent to it. I follow Mom Uncharted, and she talks a lot about this topic. And so I just figure it's rather safe than sorry, kind of. And it doesn't seem to matter too much. It's not that was a focal point or anything for me. But
well, it's interesting. So we only post his back or walking. We don't post his face, but we do post his back and whatever. I mean, mostly it's pictures of me and him walking and that sort of thing. And one thing I started doing recently, which I don't know if you do this, is which I thought was interesting, is I pay him for that.
Oh, interesting.
So I spoke to my accountant and I was like, okay, so he's in my content a few times a month. And granted, it's not his face, but he's in it. So technically he's modeling for it. And then also I felt a little weird as my company has grown. It's I'm making money doing this. And so if he's in it and also he's not able to, he's young, obviously he's 3. So he's not able to necessarily legally consent to be in it. I'm carrying the consent for him. Then in my opinion, he should get paid for it. Which was weird.
A child actor would or a child model would. There's...
Exactly. So now when he's in video content for me or for my husband, who also has an Instagram presence, then we pay him for that. Obviously, we don't hand him a $50 bill or something, but we do pay him and put it into his own checking account and everything. So just like that. So I felt like, I don't know, that like there's so many elements to it, right? There's the element of consent. Then there's the element of like their digital footprint. And then there's the element of they're working, technically. So I tried to solve two of those with that. Like, I'm going to pay him. I'm not going to put his bet or his face in. But in terms of like the digital footprint, that's the one I don't have an answer for right now, you know?
Right. And nobody really does. It's like so kind of unregulated, and we'll see what happens in the future. I think millennial parents have been sort of figuring out this. I mean, my personal, Instagram, Facebook, I would put tons of pictures, and now it's sort of like, are we still doing this? Are we not? I think we're figuring it out together.
I know. I have no idea. And then I think about that. We could go on a tangent about this, but I think about that too with like my face. Like my face is all over the internet. Like, oh my God, like, I'm not trying to disappear or anything, so I guess it's fine. But if I ever was, probably would be impossible. Okay, so let's get into, I think one thing we were going to talk a little bit today about is, so you have your private practice, and up until this point, you have been, marketing primarily your private practice. And now there's this question of like, do you take feminist mom therapist and monetize it in some way? And what do you feel like ethically about that and everything? So maybe, do you want to talk about that?
Yeah. Because it's this thing I've been mulling over probably for like the last 6 months. Sort of, what is it? Where am I headed? I sort of started off with, I'm gonna kind of, maybe create a platform that would give me opportunities. I feel like I have gotten to connect with folks like you, right? Yeah. Through this, like I feel like connect with, other folks all over the world. I mean, it's pretty cool. I like having a voice, but kind of feeling like, is there something more that I could contribute? And also like the dream that like modern therapists have, or having sort of, I think mixed income and being able to, not just depend on one-on-one client work, which is like the main, thing. And that's the thing I enjoy, but being able to sort of have other options. So I have I've done so far what I've done outside of this is I have done, a few partnerships with brands that sort of feel aligned, which is always really important to sort of make sure that I feel really comfortable about partnering with them. I have some like affiliate kinds of relationships. And I think people must think that gives you tons of money. I don't think like the affiliate stuff, really, like the Amazon Prime Day was like, like $8 or whatever. Like it's not.
I didn't even bother. Yes. Well, yesterday, so when we're filming this will come out a lot later, but when we're filming this yesterday, a couple of days ago was the Amazon Prime Day. And if you're an Amazon affiliate, they send you like hundreds of emails like, it's Prime Day, get ready, and you like post your link and they're like, you earned $4 today, and you're like, great. I don't even bother anymore. I mean, I know that there are people out there who I follow a lot of those influencers that do Amazon links, but like, I mean, they've got to be doing the volume has got to be nuts. I don't know how people do it, honestly.
Yeah. I think you have to have a huge following, because I think like 1% of your followers are going to like buy a thing and whatever. Right. So I don't know. Like those are things I've been doing. I do have a book idea, but I just don't know. I'm still like, it feels like it's a big deal. Like writing a book and like a proposal, it's a big deal. And
it's a big
I'm
deal.
a mom.
It's a lot of
I've
work.
got 2 kids. I've got a private practice. So just figuring out the time to do it can be challenging. But I see lots of folks doing like courses and that's where I feel a little tricky, because it's like I'm part of my message is it's not like you can just fix everything yourself with a course or with information. Part of my message is like, actually, we need to change things in the culture. There are things you can do, and in therapy, we talk about that. Like, where can you like divest from? How can you use your own values to make decisions as a mom that help you move through this difficult mothering landscape, right? I feel like there's information there that I do pass on, but I have a hard time sort of, especially because there's been so many folks who already have courses and things, which is what I feel like a lot of therapists are doing.
Right.
So that's kind of where I like want to provide something, but I also, I don't know, I'm not sure if people really want that anymore, you know?
Do you do Instagram subscription? Like, do you have subscribers?
No, I haven't. I know I have the option, but I haven't done that either.
I mean, that's one option. So like, and you know, it's interesting. So we like talked about this briefly off camera, and like, so it's not like we've like gotten into this really, like, which is just a new question. I'll brainstorm with you. I mean, and then we kind of talked a little bit about like, have you thought about having a podcast?
Yeah, that's another idea I've had, for sure. Yeah, like I have so many ideas, and then it's sort of figuring out which thing do you do and which thing feels sustainable. Because it's really, I think the way my mind works, I don't know about if you relate to it, is I can like come up with ideas, I get excited about it, but really wanting to commit to something that I feel like, you know, I want to do long term. That can be hard when you already have like so many other commitments. It feels like as a parent and therapist.
100%. So I had Instagram subscribers for a while, and I actually just decided not to do it for that reason. It was not that big of a commitment, but it felt like ongoing, and I had so many other ongoing things. I was like, this is not where my heart is, you know?
Right.
So, you know, one thing that helps me, I feel like, get clarity on this question of like, do I want to monetize my content? How do I want to? Because I was on Instagram for about 1.5 years before I ever did. And I actually think that's really good. So, you know, I think like when you start out and you're just like putting out sales stuff for people, like people don't want that. You know, they're not on the internet or they're not on Instagram necessarily to buy stuff right away. And so I think you've built a lot of trust with your audience, you know? So I know one thing that helped me early on was doing just like some one-off workshops. Mm-hmm. So rather than like investing this huge amount of time into like creating an online course, filming it, I started out by just doing like these Zoom workshops where I'd say, I'd pick a topic and I'd say, you know, tickets are $20, $50, $15, whatever it was. And I would see, I think I did like 10 of them maybe. And I would just see which ones people enjoyed.
Yeah.
And then it was like you host a Zoom workshop. At the end, you do a Q&A and you can ask people a lot of questions about like what they're feeling like they're needing. And you actually end up walking away with more than you would think. Because if you charge, you know, you have a pretty big audience. So if you charge like, you know, even $20 a ticket, even if you only have 10 people in the workshop, you're still making what you would have made in that hour on therapy. And then I felt like that gave me the clarity to be like, okay, these are the workshops that did really well. These are the ones that people really didn't need. Okay, so then what does that translate to? Like, is it a ebook? Is it a book? Is it a guide? Is it a course? Like on that specific topic, you know?
Yeah, I think that's really smart. I mean, part of it is collecting data and kind of seeing, I think, I'm curious for you, but like, I think perfectionism gets in there a little bit, right? Where it's like, well, if I'm going to do one thing, I need to like do it amazing, right? Or, you know, really overdo it. So, which is something I need to like pull back from.
I extremely have that problem. And that is why sometimes I like projects that I just do one time and I get it and I try to do my best job at it. And then I'm like, okay, what needed to change? Because that's one thing I learned when I put out my first online course. We just finished refilming it. And for like 2 years, I was like, oh, this could have been slightly different, or like this could have been slightly different. But you make this huge investment in filming it. And so it's nice to like have some practice runs first, you know?
Yeah, for sure.
Hey, therapists. Are you listening to the show and thinking, I really want to launch my own private practice, but I have no idea where to start? Make sure to check out Kelley's Private Practice Roadmap course. In the course, Kelley gives you the exact steps you need to open your own thriving practice. You can find the link below in the show notes.
the topic that stood out to me that you were talking about was this idea of like, what can moms do? Like, what are practical action steps that they can take? Because I'm imagining that's what you're talking about in session, right? Or no?
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, I'm insight oriented.
Right.
I am more attachment focused, actually, in therapy. So for me, it's such an individual, right, like experience that each person's going to go through to sort of think about their values and their capacity and what's their own sort of like vision of being a mom. So, but yes, I mean, really, there are themes. There are things that lots of people end up kind of doing, right, cutting out the perfectionism, right? Making choices about what's going to be important and they're going to put energy to and where they're going to let go. But it's actually funny because my book idea isn't really for moms. It's actually for dads. It's for dads. It's a book. It's like the book that I don't know if I should post it, whatever. If someone else writes it, that's fine. But hopefully not. But like, here's the book that every new mom gives their partner if they're in a heterosexual relationship with men to understand and empathize with what they're going through. Because I see
that. I need that book.
We all need that book. Because every mom is like, here's another book that you have to read. But a lot of times it's hard for them to get their partners to read about parenting, to read about the experience. And so here's the one, here's one book that they're going to be able to understand moms. So that's the thing. It's like, I don't want to give moms more work. I want
so
dads to do more work.
So, I mean, here's the thing. Like, why wouldn't you just start? Do you put out that content now? Like, do you have reels that are like 3 things that all women wish that their husband knew?
I have
or
a
whatever?
couple, but I get a little bit on a tangent and then I'm like, I want to talk about this today. So if I was like more like tight and professional about it, I think I could. Maybe should.
Maybe you could just start with a lead magnet. When people come to your page, do they have do you have a free download or something?
Yeah, I have some.
So like you could just start with one free download, like 3 things, that this person needs to know about, like the non-birthing partner needs to know about motherhood or whatever. And like, I mean, I think it's a fabulous idea. And I think there's a lot of different ways you could do it. That could be a workshop for couples, And like, I always think like when you put an idea out there, it's not like no one's going to write the book that's the way you write the book. Do you know what I mean? Like, I'm sure there is a book out there that's about, telling your spouse how to whatever. But why not just like start and try it and see what happens,
Is this a podcast or is this like a coaching session?
I always tell my friends, like, I feel like this is like one of my like horrible traits where it's like, when you have that friend who's like, you go shopping with them and like, they're like pressuring you to buy shit, but they never buy it. Like, I'm like that friend, but like with starting businesses, I'm like, you should do it. Like, you should start that ice cream store, And then they're like, why? But I get a kick out of it. So I don't know. You could tell me to back off. Anyway,
it's fun to encourage
but
other
you
people.
should do it. I think it's like, I need the book, maybe like selfishly. I'm like, 5 weeks away from giving birth or something. And I'm like, I need it. And like, I remember right after my son was born, writing down, like in the thick of postpartum, writing down, like, these are the things that I know that are like helping me survive right now that I'm going to forget about. And I'm going to like, and then I send that PDF to like my friends and stuff when they have babies. Because you forget, you forget how hard it is.
Yes. Yeah, you do.
It's crazy. Okay, so talk to me about moving your private. So you were in Baltimore and then you moved. Why did you guys move because of the pandemic or how did that all go?
Yeah, kind of. So I was in Baltimore and my sister was living out in California, San Diego.
Nice.
You're in California?
Yeah, Santa Barbara.
Santa Barbara. Okay. And my parents were up in Philadelphia suburbs.
Yes.
And we all kind of had been talking about moving somewhere and being close to each other. And of course, my little sister had a baby, or she was pregnant at the time. And it was like, well, she needs support because she's the little one, right? And I'm the big sister, right? So she needs to be close by.
And you already had 2 kids at this point?
Yeah.
Okay.
not much like family nearby, but
Right.
Baltimore and Philly wasn't terrible.
Yeah.
So we all picked, like, somehow there was some research, some talk, and we decided on Raleigh. None of us lived here.
Wait, what? Like your parents, you and your sister, and then your significant others, or no?
Yeah. So, right. So 3 couple families, we all bought houses in the pandemic in Raleigh. I never even visited. We got like new builds, where like we committed to buying this house. This was crazy. Yeah.
How close together?
We're all like 10 minutes away from each other. So my sister, like, they moved first, and then my parents came, and then we came all within the last like several months. So it was like in 2021. Yeah. So yeah, it was totally
I just
wild.
gotta know, what were your significant others like? What were they just totally in, or did out of like these 6 adults, did anyone need convincing?
Well, my husband was the last one to like commit. Like my sister's husband, he was like ready for it. He was fine because they were actually from Philly, or he was from Pittsburgh. Anyway, he was on board. He wanted to come. My husband like really loved Baltimore, and like we had been there for like 15 years, and I was like, all right, I'm ready for like a new adventure.
Right.
And he loves it now. Like it just like took him a little bit of time, and he was happy. So yeah, we all put our hands in like a circle. We're like, all right, we're doing it, and promised each other that we would, and we did.
And then does everyone work remote then? Or how did it all go down with the jobs?
Yeah, so my parents retired.
Yeah.
So that was easier. And that was part of choosing Raleigh, was like someplace that maybe cost of living was a little bit better, that my sister wanted to make sure there was like access to the ocean and the mountains, right? And kind of, and we wanted, sort of a nice like family oriented place. So my husband actually got a job at a school. And luckily during the pandemic, it really kind of helped him be able to work virtually for a while. And then, everybody else kind of had jobs that started off virtual because he was like in the pandemic. And then once we were here, it kind of changed. So it was really cool. And I think as a therapist, again, all my clients are virtual.
Right.
So it was a little bit of a process to get the licensure here, because you had to, in order to set up a business, you had to be licensed in the state. But then once I kind of went through that process, now I have like most of my clients are still in Maryland.
Right.
And I'm just starting to kind of get some North Carolina folks too.
That's wild. So do you think that you'll ever go back to being in the office?
No. I love it. I didn't think I would, but I love it. Like right now, like I'm still like in my like jammies, my jammy pants. Like
you should see what I'm wearing. I have my yoga pants on. Yeah.
It's awesome. Like it's just so convenient. And I think for my population, like moms, it's really helpful to be able to have them like even like during a nap, like they can go on a session and Yeah.
I mean, I started seeing my own therapist virtually when I became a mom, which also happened to be when the pandemic was. And I never went back to seeing her in the office, even though she does have an office, because I'm like, this is just like to get enough childcare to go into an office to see someone is a whole thing, versus like they're in an app or they're watching TV when they get a little older or something. You can go in the other room eventually. But I know. I always ask myself that question too. Like, am I going to go back one day? And I think I will one day, but maybe not until my kids are a lot older.
Yeah. I mean, I think that there is something about sharing physical space, right, with somebody, and just like, and having a place that they can come to, right? Sometimes being able to leave their own environment can be helpful. Yeah. But I think, there's also a lot of benefits too.
Oh, yeah. Huge. I mean, I save a ton of money. I just miss having coworkers. That's my big thing. Like, I miss being able to I was in like a group office situation. We were all separate businesses, but we all shared an office. There were like 10 of us. And I do miss that. Like, I miss going out to lunch and, peeking my head out the door and that sort of thing. But anyway, who knows? Okay, so here's my question for you. So you're fully virtual, partially in Maryland, partially in Raleigh. Where do the majority of your clients come from? Meaning, like, where do your referrals come from?
Probably still other therapists or other clients. Like, I think at this point, a lot of clients, which is a wonderful compliment, will refer folks. I do get some through social media, and I do get some from Postpartum Support International has like a directory. So folks will find me there.
Right.
But a lot of it, like I did have, I think, a pretty good sort of connection to the community of perinatal focused therapists and psychiatrists in Maryland. And I'm getting to know the folks here and now in Raleigh.
Yeah.
But yeah, other professionals.
It's huge. Like, I think sometimes people make this assumption that when you're active on social media, that all your referrals are coming from social media.
Yeah, no, it's definitely like it's there. Like, I'm excited that it even happens. But it's still like old fashioned, just like word of mouth, people knowing people is like always what it comes down to.
That's my number one too. I mean, always. And I think like they're better referrals is the wrong way to say it, but like it's like a soft or what do they call it? A warm handoff. Yeah. It's like, I'll get calls from a psychiatrist or from another mom in our community or something and say like, oh, I have this friend. Here's what she's struggling with. Here's, is this a good fit? Okay, we'll talk through it. Maybe it's not. So you kind of have a sense of the client, and then like you kind of have a sense of just, is this going to be a good fit or not? Whereas on Instagram, it's like someone's sending you a DM, and sometimes it's like totally out of left field,
Yeah, or like I'm not licensed in that specific state that you're in. Yeah. I do think it's nice about Instagram to be connected to other providers. Yeah. And so other therapists, like I just referred someone to a therapist that she works in like chronic health conditions. I was like, I remembered that. So I'm referring someone that way, So I do think it's helpful, even like professional to professional.
Totally. And it's especially, I think of that like even in like some of those therapist Facebook groups, like that can be helpful to like, especially when I have clients like going to college out of state or something like that. What do you think? Okay, so you left the group practice during the pandemic. Do you think you would have left as soon as you did had there not been a pandemic?
No. Mm-mm. Yeah, I think the going to virtual in a lot of ways really benefited, I think, private practice owners to be able to start a practice and not have to get an office. Okay. Financially, that was so much easier. Yeah. And I think I would have waited till I moved. I was like, I knew we were moving to North Carolina, but it would have been a whole lot harder. I mean, it's really not very much money to invest in starting a private practice when it's virtual, and it's so accepted now the way it wasn't before.
Oh my gosh, I tell people this all the time. It's like, we're lucky as therapists, like, especially, I mean, I used to say like you need a chair, an office, and a computer, but like now I'm like, you just need a chair and a quiet room and a computer, like we don't even need an office. And that was the biggest expense before,
Totally.
And okay, so, and for you now, how do you balance your schedule and motherhood, and what does that look like for you with being in private practice?
Yeah, so I feel really fortunate to be in control of all of that in a way that, back when I was in like agency and I'm working 9 to 5 every day and running to daycare and rush, like that whole experience, I really don't miss that. So I really work it around my life. My kids are in school, Monday through Friday. And so I get to like do the bus stop and the drop off in the morning. And then I don't see a client until 10. So after kids are gone, then I get ready and like alone.
Take a shower.
Yes. And then I see clients. I was going to 5. I'm going to be going to 4 now because I have to pick up my kindergarten, or my youngest is going to be in kindergarten.
Oh my gosh.
I know. And then Fridays, I don't see clients on Fridays.
Yeah.
And I do things like this, or catch up on stuff, or get a massage, or whatever.
Oh, I need it. I want it right now. It's a Friday right now. I want a massage.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
I
was
mean,
doing that once a month. I also do a consultation group too for therapists who focus on like perinatal, and I do that once a month. And that does provide me with a sense of community and kind of keeps me sort of focused on like supervision too.
Do you lead that group, or are you a member? How does that work?
Yeah, so I run that group, and it's been going on, I think, about a year.
Right.
And that's kind of like I let therapists kind of drop in as they want to and when they want to, and we talk about cases, and
that's awesome.
Really enjoy that.
Well, I mean, that's another thing you could do is like in the multiple content areas, you know, you could create content specifically for therapists about perinatal mental health.
I've thought about that because I think that there is a missing sort of piece around like
huge
feminist or just like understanding the systemic parts of. Yeah.
I think you should do that and then come back on this podcast and promote it. Because I totally agree with you. I think it's like PSI has some great resources, but like other than that, I mean, there's some, I don't know. I guess this isn't my space. I shouldn't say like there's nothing else because there probably is. But I think there's a lack of resources for therapists and training about perinatal mental health.
Yeah, I think there are a few places where they're doing kind of similar work. I feel like there is another practice, and I can't remember names. I'm really bad at not remembering names. But maybe I'll send it to you, and you could put it in the show notes.
Yeah, we can put it in the show notes.
Yeah. But I think a lot of folks are doing more kind of straightforward, like medical model or like a CBT, or kind of just like one piece of it. And so, yeah, I do think it would be cool to have more of that. Again, another thing to
throw it in the
list.
idea pot.
Yes.
I have like a whole notebook that's just like different things that, you know, when I'm in my 70s and I want to like do some other type of work, I'm like, I'll just throw it in the idea pot. Anyway, well, so here's the question I always like to end on with people is, what do you wish someone had told you when you were first starting out in your career as a therapist that you didn't get?
That you could be on social media talking about politics and, you know, things you care about and still have like a successful career. I think, being able, and that's something I do like try to pass on, sort of the fact that I think the blank slate is out. I think people really want to feel like they know who they're sharing things with and kind of what they believe in a way that's not right. It's not about putting your, you know, values or your own stuff on the client, but just kind of showing up a little bit more authentically. I think knowing that was possible, and I think that would have been really helpful.
Totally. That would have been helpful for me too. Well, Erin, thank you so much. So we'll put all of your info in the show notes, so anyone who's listening to this episode, just click below and you'll be able to get in touch with Erin, follow her on Instagram, your website, everything. Are there any last thoughts, Erin, or anything else you want to say?
F the patriarchy.
Yeah. All right. Thank you so much for coming. It was so nice to talk.
Thank you so much, Kelley.
Ask Kelley Anything is just around the corner. But first, a word from our sponsor. Stay tuned for Kelley's response to your private practice questions.
Therapists, do you want more clients at your full cash rate? Mentaya is a platform that navigates out-of-network benefits for clients. They get clients on average 70% back on therapy by filing claims and chasing down insurance companies. They handle literally everything so that you can focus on what matters. Click the link in the show notes to learn more and get 1 month free using the code PRO. On today's segment of Ask Kelley Anything, we are talking about consultation calls, and I'm actually answering a message I got via email. So the therapist who wrote this email wanted to know if I ever bypass a consultation call if the client wants to just go ahead and book that first session. So this is an interesting question, and it's actually one I don't get very often, but one that I've had come up in my own practice, and I think it's important. So let me lay out this scenario for you as the way I'm envisioning it.
a client calls you or texts you or emails you and says, I want to come in for a first session. I'm available on these dates, and let me know which one I can come in for. All right. Typically, a lot of clients will not say something like that. They'll say, do you have any openings? I'd love to speak to you on the phone to see if we're a good fit, that kind of thing. So the question is, do you go ahead and just book one of those sessions? Maybe you text them back, maybe you email them back, or do you say, hey, why don't we hop on a call? I will tell you, hands down, without a doubt in my mind, I always ask them to hop on a call. Even if they say, I don't care what your fee is, I'm willing to meet with you. Because here's why. When a client comes in for those first consultation sessions, they're signing all of your paperwork, they're signing your informed consent. They're really becoming a client of your practice, right? Even in that very first session. And what the phone call allows us to do, and what many clients don't know, and we don't have to say this necessarily, is you're screening them as much as they're screening you. You're looking for potential red flags. You're looking for somebody and determining whether or not they're the right acuity level for private practice, right? Somebody might be in more of a crisis than you're able to handle in private practice, and you might not know it because you haven't had that first phone call and been able to refer them out to a higher level of care if they need it. I also have found with therapy in particular, and this might just be kind of a personal decision for me, but when someone is really rushing to get in, I think we've all had those clients who are like, can I get in today? Can I come right now? Do you have any openings today? That sometimes that momentum doesn't actually stick. Therapy, especially in seeing a solo private practice therapist, oftentimes is a longer term commitment, and it's not just built on momentum. And although I think it's good to get people in as soon as you can, I usually don't book a same day appointment. I give it a day. I let them talk on the phone to me. And oftentimes what is actually coming out on that phone call is a lot of anxiety and somebody who really wants help. And I let them know, hey, why don't we hop on a free phone call? I have a half an hour. I might even give it a little bit longer. And let's just talk about if I'm the right fit for you. And if I'm not, I will help you find someone who is. And I find that wording disables a lot of the anxiety. And they're like, okay, this person is going to help me find someone. And, I think it's so tempting. Sometimes we get emails that are like, my friend referred you to me and she sings your praises and they think you're amazing and I just want to book this appointment. But I absolutely always insist on that phone call. So I hope this helps, and I'll see you next time.
If you would like to be featured on Ask Kelley Anything, I love getting listener questions from you guys. Anything about private practice goes. And the best way to do that is actually just to give me a call and leave me a question on my voicemail. So I'm going to tell you the phone number right now and make sure to write it down. Here it is, 805-243-8241. I'm looking forward to hearing from you.